Welcome to the Rundown. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Ray.
How you been, Ray?
I've been good. This was a amazing sports week. I didn't know so much had happened in between podcast episodes, but we got a lot to discuss this week.
I know I almost felt like I couldn't post any social media clips because everything changed like within the span of a day, and I didn't want us to be super late. But let's get into the takes because I'm in a great mood, and it's because the Bears lost to the Rams.
It was dicey there for a moment, though.
It
It was
was.
dicey. I did have, let's call it a moment of prophecy. I felt a bit prophetic. I did. I remember saying last week on the first episode that when the Rams played the Panthers, they allowed the Panthers to hang around, right? Okay, remember that?
They
I
did.
said, hey, I said the Bears are a lot better than the Panthers. I said, I don't think the Rams can afford to let the Bears hang around the same way they let the Panthers hang around. And they let Caleb Williams hang around, and it played like the game against your team did against the Packers. He didn't look great that first half. I mean, he didn't look great for the first three quarters. But I said if he gets into a position in that fourth quarter, the same position he was in against the Packers, I said, and he just has a chance. So we might see some fireworks. And oh yes.
We did. And you can't take that throw away. You can't. It was a great throw. It was something that no one could believe that happened. I did take slight issue with the commentary from Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth when they were like, we've never seen anything like this. I'm like, you've never seen anything? No, I don't believe that that's true. You've seen many things like this. It can still be great, but we've seen other things like this, guys. Come on. He's not it. And he's not
Have
him.
you seen a play like that? Have you seen a play like that?
Yes, I've seen Rodgers done stuff like that.
Oh, here we go. You don't have to make it about the Packers every time.
I'm just saying, listen, no, no, no. I've witnessed greatness from Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Cam Newton, you name it, I've seen it. That's not to take away from this throw. I want to make that very clear. I may be a bitter Packer fan, but I can still recognize that this was an excellent throw. And it was crazy. But he threw an interception at the end of the game and it cost his team. So I don't know what to say. Nobody's talking about that, though. Nobody's talking about it.
Now, does that erase his heroics in the fourth quarter though, and regulation to you?
Yes.
Would you feel the same way if that was your quarterback?
I've seen my quarterback, not necessarily Jordan Love, but I've seen Rodgers do it. I've seen Favre do it. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible when it happens. The last game that Brett Favre played for the Green Bay Packers was the NFC Championship game against the Giants, the year that the Giants, I believe, would go up to beat the Pats. And he's throwing, it looks beautiful, intercepted. And that's a game. I just don't feel like we're talking enough about the Caleb Williams interception. I've heard a lot of people
In
talk.
fairness, he did have three interceptions for the game.
He did. And I think people aren't necessarily talking enough about the game as a whole. They're talking a lot about that fourth quarter, which they should, because it's not that it's not important, but you have to keep it also within the context of the game. So he threw three interceptions. Nobody's talking about him in a fairly negative way. Nobody's talking about, what he did or didn't do, but yet we're talking about Josh Allen and what he didn't do. We're talking about CJ Stroud, who threw four picks in the first half of his playoff game. So I just feel like if we're going to talk about Caleb Williams, we have to talk about him in the whole context of the game. Yes, that play was great. Yes, they pulled off a lot of fourth quarter miracles. But at the end of the day, what does it say about your team that you only come alive in the fourth quarter, that you can't make things happen before then? That's not necessarily the measure of a great team. So I think going into next season, the Bears really have to ask themselves, yes, we can make those fourth quarter comebacks, but we have to be consistent throughout the whole of the game. It can't just be the fourth quarter because you can't always expect that that's going to happen because every once in a while, a team will pull too far ahead where you can't come back. Somebody will fumble or an interception will be thrown. Someone will miss a kick. I mean, and I know that from personal experience, which by the way, it was really nice to see. I think every kicker make their kicks. A foreign concept to a Packer fan over here, but kudos to all those kickers for doing their job. I
And
don't.
actually, a lot of the talk before the game, especially in Chicago, was that the winds were going to be a factor in that game. And the kickers actually came through, and that last kick was huge. That last kick was big. It looked like it was bending left there for a moment. It did. It really, really did. I got a little nervous. I thought Caleb Williams might get the ball back one more time, but it stayed true, and the Rams are going on to the next round.
That kicker also kicked another really weird field goal where it was like really low and to the side. And I was like, I don't even know what that kick was. It was still good. So we'll give it to him, but very weird. I will say that the funniest part of leading up to this Bears Rams game was the amount that they talked about the weather and the amount that they talked about how that was going to impact Matthew Stafford. To which I say, I feel like you guys forgot that he used to play for Detroit and he would play the Bears and the Packers twice a year. That was not, he's used to cold weather. And the same with Devontae Adams as well. He played for Green Bay. He knows how to play in cold weather. So I just thought that was one of those things where I was like, can we find something else to talk about with these two teams rather than the weather?
You mentioned Caleb Williams and the lack of criticism that he's received, at least in comparison to some of the other quarterbacks that lost over the weekend, Josh Allen, CJ Stroud. I think that's in large part because we got to remember the Bears just won their first playoff game in 15 years last week against the Packers, right? So a lot of people didn't expect, I think, for the Bears to arrive this early. I think a lot of people think they're ahead of schedule. Yeah, he did struggle the first three quarters, but he's shown over and over, even though he can struggle early on in the game, when those clutch moments come up, he has not shied away from the moment. And I think, especially in the playoffs, when you see these moments, that is going to stick with people, especially for a young quarterback like Caleb Williams is. I think that's going to stick out for from people more than the three interceptions that he threw. I think the difference when you look at Josh Allen and now after a couple of playoff seasons under his belt, now CJ Stroud too, is we're waiting for these guys to get over the hump. We're waiting for Josh Allen to get over the hump. We know he has the talent. So when we look at him and it's another failed playoff experience with him, we're just like, we're going to criticize him more than Caleb Williams.
I think the difficulty with that thinking is that it almost excuses the mistakes. And at the end of the day, this man threw three interceptions. There are other members of his team that cost them the game. The drops I think were bad. I think the fact that Ben Johnson didn't go for it for two, I think that was also a problem. So it isn't all on Caleb Williams, but I think when you don't give the full context of his game, it doesn't give an accurate picture of where the team is. And what the Bears have shown in the last month or so is that they are a fourth quarter team, which is great, but that doesn't help you if someone gets too far out ahead of you. It doesn't help you if you make mistakes late in the game. You don't have a cushion. There's nothing for you to fall back on because this is the only thing that you're doing. I think they have a lot of potential to do well next season. I think the NFC North is going to be extremely competitive. But I think to not give that criticism, I understand he's new, but he's not a rookie. This is second year. I know it's uncharted territory for him and for the Bears organization as a whole. Like you said, it's been a really long time. But no, he needs to be criticized. You can't act like this man walks on water when he threw three interceptions in a game, including at the very end of the game.
It's easy to look at a lot of these decisions in hindsight and critique them, second guess them. But do you think that Ben Johnson should have gone for two?
I think that's a tough call because they had not had good luck on fourth down. Like there were several that they just couldn't complete on. So I understand going into overtime because that is the smart decision. I think that's the more common sense decision to make. However, Ben Johnson is not always a common sense man. I was surprised they didn't go for two because I would have thought he would have wanted to have been aggressive. I don't want to say it was a mistake, but I think that if your aggressiveness is what got you here, why not embrace it fully? That's not to say that they would have made it in two, but I get wanting to just take it into overtime because I do think that that's the common sense thing to do. Most teams would have done that. I don't know if he's rethinking that decision, but I'm sure it was a decision that weighed heavily on him after the game, for sure.
It goes right. He looks like a genius. They failed the 2-point conversion. He gets criticized all offseason for trying to go for it. So I can understand wanting to go for the field goal. I try to think about a lot of these things with where if it was my team, what would I have wanted them to do? And I think if it were my team in that position, I probably would have just gone for the field goal, especially because they're at home. And me and you had this conversation where we feel like, especially in the playoffs, teams that are at home to fare a little bit better in overtime. So I can see his thought process there. If he had decided to go for two, that would have been something to watch.
Agreed. I mean, if it were my team, I would have just gone for two because our kicker can't do anything. But I understand. I understand the decision to go into overtime, and I don't think it was a bad one. But I was a little surprised just based on his track record. This weekend was full of surprises, including the Bills versus Broncos, which my heart broke a lot for Josh Allen. He did not play well in that game, but man, I wanted him to go to the show. I have a lot of love for Josh Allen. That was sad.
I live in Josh Allen country. I live in
Mm,
northern New York, and it's just a whole pocket of Bills fans up here. So I have a lot of friends that are Bills fan, and I felt for them.
hmm
And I was not necessarily invested in this game for anything personal, but that was one of the roughest losses I think I've seen Josh Allen take. I don't think I was necessarily surprised because I think we got to give the Broncos a lot of credit. That's a good team right there. That's
hmm
been a very good team all season. And I have a good friend who's a Broncos fan, and he did say the only team he really was worried about were the Bills. But that was a really phenomenal game as well. And but your heart breaks for Josh Allen, but then your heart also breaks for the Broncos. Because what
Oof,
about Bo
yeah.
Nix? What about Bo Nix? That is just a crusher.
Getting that information in the middle of watching the Seattle game and 49ers was crazy. I was like, wait, he broke his ankle? I couldn't believe it. And I do want to say on the last podcast, I did say that I thought the Broncos were going to fumble. So, and they did not. So, Doug, I am sorry that I insulted your Broncos. There you go. That's as far as I'll go.
I like to see a little bit of accountability though, and I know Doug will too.
Yeah, I do take a lot of accountability. I think that I'm often wrong about things, not all the time, but I do have my moments of being wrong, and I will admit when I'm wrong. So the Broncos, they did not fumble. They played a great game. I think the calls at the end of the game were a bit odd and I think soured the game a little bit. I wish that those hadn't happened because I think sometimes whenever you are watching a really intense game and then officiating comes into play, it just kind of puts a sour taste in your mouth for the game. I do think though that the first pass interference call, they just should have let them play. They were letting them play the whole game, shouldn't have called it. But the second pass interference call, yes, that was pass interference. No getting around that. But
You thought the second one was egregious enough for them to call that, really?
yeah, I didn't think the first one was, though. I think they should have let the first one play, but the second one I thought was like, yeah, that's pass interference. So I think it's hard when they don't call PI like the whole game and then all of a sudden they call it at the end. But to me, the catch interception, I don't know what we're calling that. That was a really weird turn of events in the game.
What surprised me most about that play was that, am I wrong? Did they even take a second look at that? I didn't see the game stop in between snaps for them to actually go and take a look at that play.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was a I think they probably should have taken more time to look at it. It seemed very odd. It was one of those plays where I'm like, "Wait, what is a catch? What even is that anymore?" Because I was just so kind of dumbfounded by the way that it ended up working out. And Sean McDermott, even at the end of the game, was like, "I didn't really understand that call." So I do think that was a poor move on the officiating staff. I wish they would have taken like a deeper look at that. Not that it would have necessarily changed the call, but I think I would have liked more clarity on their end of why the call stood the way that it did.
Some of the calls this weekend did seem a little bit inconsistent. I do agree with you. They called that Bills game extremely inconsistent. They let them play for a majority of, I mean, pretty much through regulation. And then it's like they started calling these ticky tacky. I mean, I'm sorry. I really thought both of those DPIs that were called on Buffalo were a little bit bogus. It seemed like they had been physical more than the hand fighting that I saw that took place in those two DPIs. And I really thought that that stole a lot of the thunder from the game. It's funny because a lot of people dislike the Chiefs because they feel like these calls always go the Chiefs' way, especially in a lot of these games with the Bills. And I've never really felt that, and a large part of that is probably because I'm a big Patrick Mahomes fan. But
Yeah,
now
so
just kind
you
of
don't
being
have
on
any
the other
room.
side of now kind of being on the other side of that and actually wanting the Bills to win that game, I definitely thought the refs took that game into their own hands and definitely ruined what was a very, very good and clean game up until that point.
There was a moment in the Rams Bears game where Caleb Williams hit his hand on a helmet or something like that. There was and I looked at my stepdad and I was like, if that was Pat Mahomes, that would have been a roughing the passer and that guy would have been ejected from the game. Cause like that's that's the kind of calls that Pat Mahomes gets all the time. So it is weird to watch a game, to be quite honest, where they don't do a lot of those callings. But some ways I like it more. I feel the same way about basketball. I like when they just let them play. Not to a
You
point where
have
it's
to.
dangerous, but I do like when they just let them play.
You have to understand moments. You have to understand moments in games. And when you're under 5 minutes left in overtime, you can't throw the flag during those times. You got to let these guys play. It's a playoff game to go on to the
Hmm.
championship game. I just think you got to hold it at that point. But
Yeah.
do you think this was because we got to get into what happened today as a result of this
Hmm.
game?
Hmm.
Do you think this was bad Bills or good Broncos when it mattered most?
I think it was probably a combination. I mean, it's no secret Josh Allen didn't play well. I didn't find the Broncos to be overly. I didn't find them to play extremely well, but I mean, I'm really interested to see where they go next week without Bo. I don't even know who that backup quarterback is. Who is it?
Why you have to do him like that?
I,
Jared Stidham? Come on
Jared's,
now.
listen, Stidham, my apologies. Like, I say I'm sorry when I need to
Mr.
be.
Stidham.
Sir, like I hope you play well. I wish you the best. I'm actually rooting for the Broncos next week because I don't want the Pats to win. So, Doug, I'm on your side for next week. And I hope they play well. But they got a long road ahead of them, I guess.
Well, they're hoping it's a short road. 2 more games and they'll be Super Bowl champions. And Jared Stidham might be. Did anybody guess at the beginning of the season that Jared Stidham might be a starting quarterback in this year's Super Bowl? I don't think
Absolutely not.
anybody had that on their bingo card.
Absolutely not.
You couldn't even name him.
I don't think anybody thought that he would be a starting quarterback. And I think there are a lot of people who also didn't think that Sean McDermott was going to get fired after losing that game, but he did.
I did not even for a second consider that his job might be on the line after the end of that game. I didn't. I really, really didn't.
I'm not surprised. I didn't
Really?
I didn't think he was going to be back. Unless he had taken them to the Super Bowl, I didn't think he was going to keep his job. They want a ring.
This surprised me actually a little bit more than the John Harbaugh firing. It really did.
Mm,
You
hmm.
look at McDermott, right? McDermott has been coaching the Bills for 8 seasons, right? He's 98-50 overall record with the Bills. Josh Allen's rookie season, the Bills went 6-10. After that, the Bills never won less than 10 games. I mean, he's had a lot of success with the Bills. I think good just wasn't good enough. I think they're tired of the Bills not even making the Super Bowl at this point. You started this playoffs, you had no Lamar Jackson to worry about, no Patrick Mahomes to worry about, no Joe Burrow to worry about. I think management probably looked and said, "This is our year."
I would be surprised if Josh Allen wins a ring. I think he's going to be kind of like Dan Marino in that way.
In Josh Allen's defense, he didn't really have any elite receivers to throw the ball to this year. The Bills' run game is always pretty good. Their defense was, I mean, kind of like middle of the pack. They allowed 33 points to the Broncos, so that probably was a big reason why they didn't win the game yesterday. But their offense, he needs help. He needs somebody, a sure person he can throw the ball to, and they haven't really found him a top wide receiver since they let Diggs go. So while this is some bad Josh Allen, yes, he definitely did not have a good game yesterday, but he's been a very, very good quarterback for them, even
Yeah,
in the playoffs.
I'm not quite sure where the problems are. I think that they weren't cohesively working in all three phases of football. And I think that was to their detriment. but I'm not quite sure what more he needs. I think they just need to stay consistent. I don't think they'll get another season where all of those quarterbacks that you mentioned are not present, but maybe next year will look similar. I mean, Pat Mahomes is going to be coming back from an injury, so we don't know how that's going to play out. Travis Kelsey may retire. They also are missing some weapons, I think, on their end. Their team hasn't quite looked the same. The Bengals, can they get it together? Sure, they're capable of it. Will they? I don't know. We'll have to wait until probably October for them to start playing well because they never play well in September. And, I think with the Ravens' new head coach, whoever that's going to be, leaves a big question mark for how they're going to do. So I think that Josh stands a good chance, obviously, to go back to the playoffs. He can play well, but now you are competing with a decent Patriots team. Drake May's not a joke. He is going to be a very elite quarterback, and he's going to bring more
Oh,
championships,
he's
I'm
good.
sure, to
MVP
New
candidate.
England. Yeah. So I actually pulled up the QBR ratings for the 2025 season, just to see kind of where everybody was, and Drake May was number one. And you know who was number two? Take a guess.
Wow. Was it Jordan Love?
It was Jordan Love. I don't want to hear any more slander about this man ever,
Wow.
ever.
Hey. Talk your shit, Ryan.
So,
Okay. See? See?
yeah. I
Ball.
mean,
Ball knowledge. Wow.
doing my best out here. But I will say that I feel like Sean McDermott coaching the Bills was very similar to Matt LaFleur coaching the Packers. I think there was a lot of similarities of, yeah, we have a good record. Yeah, we're making it to the playoffs, but we can't finish. And I'm sad that Sean McDermott won't finish that journey. I'm not really too into the idea of Brian Daboll coming back, because he did work with Josh Allen before, so they are familiar. But I don't know. Listen. I know we're gonna get into the other games, but I just want to say this for what it is. I don't understand how Kevin Stefanski can have a job. Sean McDermott does not have a job. Brian Daboll may get a job, and Raheem Morris does not have a job. Make that make sense.
The NFL was on one this week with these firings. It's been a weird week with a lot of these coaches getting dismissed. But with Sean McDermott now a free agent, I'm so selfish about this. I just want the
I know
Browns
where
to
you
pick
want
up the
him.
phone, Ryan.
Yeah.
I just want the Browns to pick up the phone and give him a call. Now it seems like the Browns are going for a defensive-minded coach, which is just driving me insane because we have no issues with our defense currently. We have Myles Garrett. Now I like Jim Schwartz. He's our current defensive coordinator, and he just had a second interview. I believe that happened today for the head coaching position. But I need an offensive minded coach. And now I think they should hold off on a lot of
Yeah,
these second interviews until they have a conversation with Sean McDermott.
I do too. Too many people are getting fired. Not that I think Kyle Shanahan's going to get fired after
Yes.
that 49ers game, but still, I think there's a lot of people still in play for this. Don't pick too rashly because there are a lot of good people out there.
Did you see the Chiefs just hired today Eric Bieniemy, rehired
Yeah, I did see that.
to
I
be
got to
their offensive coordinator?
Chiefs are so low on my
I
list of
love
teams
that.
to care about.
I love that. I love that
No.
for them.
They'll be back in the mix next
I
year. I
love that
I
for
think
them.
this was a bit of a
Won two
fluke for
Super
them.
Bowls, run it back.
Yeah. I they'll be fine. I don't think everyone's like, "Oh my God, is this the end of a dynasty?" No, it's a bad season. They'll be back. They'll be back. I'm not really that. Andy Reid's a great coach. I'm not really that worried about it.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I'm also not worried. My worry goes as far as how hurt is Patrick Mahomes and how long will he take to get back to looking like Patrick Mahomes. And hopefully for the good of football, Ryan, that is sooner rather than later.
Pass. I'm a hater. Tell me, Ray, what you thought of the absolute smackdown that the Seahawks put on the 49ers.
What is there to really talk about? It was a blowout. The game started, it ended just as quickly as it started. I mean, the Seahawks have been a lot of people's favorite to make it to the Super Bowl since I would say midway to late in the season, just because their defense is something special. And 49ers offense wasn't great, but they couldn't get anything going against that Seahawks defense. And as worried as I know you are, because me and you have the same concern, you and I have the exact same concern here, Ryan. How is Sam Darnold going to look when it really, really matters? Because although the Seahawks played a very impressive game, and I'm not taking anything away from the drubbing, the beat down that they just put on the 49ers, I mean, Sam Darnold, he didn't really have to do anything. Okay. And there was no big I'm worried about the big moments when it comes to Sam Darnold. That is what I'm really concerned about. That game was never close. You never were concerned about the outcome of that game. I want to see Sam Darnold fourth quarter, the game's tied, less than 2 minutes left, or the Seahawks are down by a possession, less than 2 minutes left. And then I want to see what he could potentially do for sure.
I gotta tell you, there's only one man in this group of quarterbacks that is playing right now that I would trust with my life in a 2 minute drill, and that's Matthew Stafford. I don't trust anybody else. I think Sam Darnold is playing as well as to be expected. I think he's kind of, I don't want to say he's proved everyone wrong, but he is making it known that that last year was not his best, but it's not something that he's going to repeat. So we'll have to see how he plays in the NFC Championship game. I don't know. I could kind of see him going either way. I think it all kind of depends, but that defense of Seattle is no joke. And Shaheed is just a monster. So I think it's going to be really, really tough for the Rams to make that happen. They could do it, but I think it's going to be really tough.
Do you think their offense, they have enough offense? I do trust in Matthew Stafford. I really, really do. He's a Super Bowl champion already. Honest that he can do it when it matters most. So I have zero concern about him, but I have concerns when it comes to that Seattle defense because they don't stop coming at you. And the Rams, they kind of struggled against the Bears defense. So I'm like, if you struggled against the Bears, I'm a little worried to see what you're going to look like against Seattle because them boys is not going to be playing around.
Well, I think the one thing that they have going for them is that they can go home to the West Coast. They don't have to deal with the time difference when they're traveling. This is a divisional opponent. They've played them multiple times. The struggles that they had against Chicago, I don't know if they'll quite have the same ones. But I think if they can get their offense going, Seattle's defense is going to have a real challenge.
Now, while I do have trust in Matthew Stafford, let's be real. He threw for no touchdowns this weekend. Okay, that was not his finest showing. Now, the drive in overtime, that was classic Matthew Stafford. Exactly what you wanted in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
The the right short passes, getting the ball back to the line of scrimmage quick, that's exactly what you want to see. So that did directly lead to the field goal once he got them in position. But his game overall, I mean, he only threw for 258 yards, 20 out of 42 completions. He didn't have a significantly better game than Caleb Williams. I mean, Caleb Williams threw for 2 touchdowns, but what set him back was that he had those 3 turnovers. Matthew Stafford cannot play like that against the Seahawks. Okay. He cannot play like that. He has to come through.
I agree. I think that he needs to do that. And I think that he will. The one thing I think that Matthew Stafford really brings to the table is control. He is a man of the moment. He understands the stakes. He is a veteran, and he'll bring that calmness to the field in a way that Sam doesn't have the experience to do. Now, I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to play terribly, but I am saying that if I had to choose between a quarterback among the two of them, I'm definitely picking Matthew Stafford. That's not even a question. So I think what you get is that veteran status. I also think people like Devontae Adams, who have been in high pressure games before, that's helpful. Puka Nakua, once he gets going, you can't stop him. So I think you're going to see a much more well rounded game from the Rams this coming weekend in a way that you didn't necessarily see it in the Bears game.
Devontae Adams, shout out to him. He made a fantastic catch late in that game, right on the sidelines. I actually texted in our group chat about that, Ryan, because
Mm-hmm.
that was vintage Devontae Adams. I hadn't seen that from him in a few years. I was a little surprised, to be honest. I was a little surprised.
As a former Packer, I root for you, sir. I want you to do well. I want you to get that ring. I wish you could have gotten that ring with us, but I wish you all the best. I like Devontae Adams a lot.
Would you be mad if the Rams won the Super Bowl this year?
No, I'm not mad about that. I don't really want any of the AFC teams to win. So I will say though that if there is if it is the Seahawks
Oh, I
versus the
thought you were
Broncos.
rooting for the Patriots.
No. Oh my God, no. I don't like the Patriots. No, thank you. I don't like that organization as a whole. So, to know. But I think their coach has done a really great job of turning them around. I think that their game versus the Texans was not their best. Drake May had 3 turnovers, not his best for sure. But when you have the quarterback of the opposite team make 4 interceptions in the first half, there's only so much the Texans defense could do at that point. So I think the Pats didn't play necessarily a great game, but they played a good enough game. And it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do against the Broncos. And if Bo Nix was playing, I would say the Broncos are going to win that game easy. Bo Nix not playing, I think it's more questionable. But if I'm being honest, if we end up seeing a Seahawks Broncos game, I'm rooting for the Broncos. I can't root for the Seahawks. So sorry, Arliss.
Can't root for the Seahawks.
Can't. But I will say this about the Seahawks. If you do go to the Super Bowl, make sure that if you're on the 1 yard line, you don't throw a pass and you give it to your running back. Do not allow history to repeat itself. It's the dumbest play Pete Carroll ever called in his life.
Arliss is not gonna like that.
It's true. Why would you throw it at the 1 yard line when your running back's Marshawn Lynch? I think we can all collectively agree that that may have been the dumbest play ever called at a Super Bowl ever.
You know, Instagram comments might be one of my favorite places on earth because I just think it's like the funniest thing ever. The comment section on Instagram is just hilarious. So very often I'll just be on a random sports post. It could have nothing to do about football at all, actually. And I'll just every so often I'll see a person comment in the comment section, Seahawks should have ran the ball. And I'm always like, it's like forever ago, but too soon. Too
It's it's a
soon.
play that will follow that organization forever. It won't not. It will forever follow them.
Was that Pete Carroll?
Yes.
Ouch.
It
People actually talked about him when it came to the Browns job, and I said, absolutely not. We don't need his old ass coaching us. Please,
no.
no, no, thank you.
He needs to retire officially. But what did you end up thinking of the Pats? Speaking of winners of Super Bowls, that they did even won that Super Bowl because of that throw at the 1 yard line.
I'm feeling like because of the Bo Nix injury, I think that spells doom for the Broncos. I do.
Mm,
I
yeah.
think Drake May has just been too consistent all
Hmm.
season. He's an MVP candidate. Defense looks great. Diggs looks great. I think they have it all lined up to get past the Broncos. And it sucks because the Broncos have had such a good season and Bo Nix had such a good season. The Broncos seem like another one of those teams that might be slightly ahead of schedule. And it hurts to see him go down with that injury. But I don't. Where's this game? Where's this game being held at? Is it in Foxborough?
No, it's at Mile High. It's in Denver. Well, because they were the number one seed.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, I think that can actually make it a little bit interesting. I don't know if the altitude is going to mess with the Patriots players at all, but it's kind of tough to throw Jarrett Stidham in there in the AFC Championship game. You know what I'm saying? After he hasn't started or really played much of the season, just because of how well Bo Nix has been all year. It's just a tough position to throw him in. But hopefully, it'll be a close game, but I do see the Patriots coming out on top.
I just want to see good football. I don't really have a stake in the game with anybody anymore, so I just kind of just want to see good football games. That's what I want to see.
And I feel like we've been really blessed
Hmm.
with some of the quality of football that we have seen these first few weeks of the playoffs because
Hmm.
a lot of these games have started slow, but some of these finishes, like the finish of the Bears game was fantastic. The week prior, the Bears Packers game
Hmm.
finish was just great. Like all of these games, I mean, with the exception of that 49ers and Seahawks game, which was a rout from the moment that game tipped off.
Yeah,
All these other games have been extremely competitive, extremely close. Like these NFL playoffs have definitely brought it for sure.
yeah, for sure. Well, I know we touched a little bit on the Sean McDermott firing, but it was a big week around the NFL for hirings and firings. Probably the biggest news, I think, outside of Sean McDermott was that Mike Tomlin stepped down. So, not fired, step down. And I will say that I really thought that the Steelers organization handled that incredibly well. Just seemed nothing but so much respect for him as a head coach. He has so much respect for that organization. And I will say that like I feel like that was how you say goodbye to a coach that's given you that many years. Looking at you, Baltimore, because that certainly wasn't how you guys handled it. But I just want to
Hell
say,
no.
yeah. So kudos to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers organization. What a 10 year he's had. I think what's really interesting is the Steelers were asked about, the fate of Aaron Rodgers. And they were like, well, we're open to him staying. And I was like, no, please don't be. Let it go.
I'm sometimes an Aaron Rodgers apologist, but you got to let him go because that game that he lost, the first round of playoffs, is just it's just embarrassing.
You
It's just
know,
I don't see anything. I don't see anything left talent wise that makes me feel like he can lead. He can seriously lead a team to be in a contending position. Do I think that Aaron Rodgers is still better than some of these second and third string quarterbacks that are on some of these teams? Of course, but if he's on a team, he's not asking for second or third string
no.
pricing firstly, right? And then it's hard to build the rest of your team around a guy who's in his 40s, aging bad, and
Hmm.
you're trying to plug in these other spots on your roster to kind of fit around his play style. I just don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't think they can do what they did last year, which was like wait until like June or July to make that announcement. I think they need to figure that out sooner rather than later for sure. But I just want to say that Aaron Rodgers' last game in Green Bay, he threw an interception. His last game as a Steeler, he also threw an interception, just like Brett Favre, who threw an interception to end his career in Green Bay and an interception to end his career in Minnesota. So for
Wax
a
is
bit,
poetic, doesn't it?
it's so poetic. And I'm sure, we can now wait to see if Aaron Rodgers is going to send dick pics to anybody that's on staff and, see what he can do about the welfare system in whatever state he's in. So let's watch those careers mirror each other even further. I I think the way that they've mirrored each other is hilarious
It's kind of
because
eerie, right? It's
it is
eerie to a
very
point.
eerie. Very happy, though, to say that Jordan Love did not throw an interception at the end of his last game this season. So perhaps the curse is broken. But, you know, really hoping that he does not follow in those footsteps. Although he does look like Favre every once in a while. My brother and I will comment that sometimes he'll throw the ball, and I feel like his method is fuck it, someone's down there somewhere. Because it just seems like, what are we even doing? But I do think that they should. I do think that they should move on from Rodgers, and I didn't get the feeling that he necessarily wanted to stay if Mike Tomlin wasn't there. So I think maybe he'll just come to that decision on his own. So hopefully that happens soon. In other news, John Harbaugh went to the Giants. But you know what I think is really crazy about that deal is that he is reporting directly to the owner. He does not report to the GM, which is
I love that for him.
not
I
something that happens
love
often.
that. I love that. I love that. I
I
really do.
mean, I think, do I think the Giants will completely turn it around? I don't know. Maybe not this season, but I definitely think they'll improve for sure. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. That division, I feel like, is really up for grabs, if I'm being honest.
I think a large part of that will go into Cam Scadaboo's health.
Hmm.
Is he slated to miss the entire season, or is he due back some like partially through the season? What's the deal with that?
I'm not sure when he's scheduled to come back, but I don't think he's going to be out for like a whole season. I think he'll be
Okay.
back, and I think Malik Neighbors will be back as well. So I
I think they
honestly,
have pieces. They do.
they do. I think it's just about the Giants staying healthy. Can you stay healthy, and can Jackson Dart adjust his style of play? We talked about that a little bit last week, but if he can get it together and be a little less cowboy out there, I think they stand a good chance of either winning that division or maybe getting into the playoffs on a wild card. I definitely think they can do it for sure.
I'm so unbelievably jealous that they got John Harbaugh. You don't even know.
Listen,
But
we'll figure
but
out who's who's head of your team
my
soon
outlook
enough.
has changed. Yes, my outlook has changed slightly now that Sean McDermott is all of a sudden available.
Hmm.
So I'm just hoping that he at least entertains them because the Browns, I could see where some coaches might want to shy away from it, but the same way that John Harbaugh went to the Giants and said, "I see this dysfunctional franchise and I feel like I can make a difference here." That is exactly the mentality that I want a coach to come into Cleveland because we get it. We've been terrible for years, but we want somebody that can come in there and just change the culture of the team,
Hmm.
which is why I wanted a name like John Harbaugh. But, he went to the Giants. But Sean McDermott, I'm looking at you, my guy. Pull up.
Matt LaFleur got his extension, which I'm not mad about. I think that's fine. I feel differently, I think, than a lot of other Green Bay fans, but he got extended. The GM's probably going to follow in that extension. However, I believe we are going to lose our defensive coordinator to the Miami Dolphins, where he will become the head coach. And that makes me really sad.
And that means Mike McDaniel is unemployed.
Oh,
We
yeah.
didn't touch on that.
He's that. I think he'll go someplace and be an offensive coordinator. I don't think he'll be a head coach.
Well, he was one of the names floated around Cleveland interviewing, and I got to be real with you. I don't want that. I am not impressed by what I've seen in Miami the last several seasons, and I don't want that in Cleveland. So, and I feel like I like Tua, to be honest. Okay. I don't think that he was the right quarterback for Mike McDaniel's system. There was a season where Waddle was healthy and Tyreek Hill was healthy and Tua, they were all healthy. They had a pretty good offense that year. But outside of that season where all three of them were healthy, Tua has largely struggled. And I think a
Yeah.
large part of that was due to Mike McDaniel's offense. And a lot of people want to talk about him as like an offensive guru. I didn't see that in Miami. I didn't see much
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And I want an offensive minded coach for Cleveland. So no, I'm not interested in him.
Well, if he does come up to Cleveland, he's going to have to lose that pimp look that he's got in Miami. It's cold up there in Cleveland, sir. You're going to have to find a new dress code.
Yeah, he's gonna have to lose the shades, throw on a jacket or something. Yeah, because that look they need blue collar. I don't know
Hmm.
what collar he was in Miami, but it is not that.
No,
It ain't that.
no. Kevin Stefanski went to the Falcons. I don't understand why he has a job, but it is what it is. And
Uh,
then, finally, as you said before, Jim Schwartz is interviewing for head coach of the Browns. Listen, I think we're in for a lot of other coaching changes. I think some offensive coordinators, some defensive coordinators. There's going to be some movement. I think this is a big restructuring year for teams. So we'll have to see where that leads us. But it's kind of crazy when you think about all the positions that are available right now, to be honest. It's wild.
Last note on that also floated for potential head coaching job for the Browns. Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken. So food for thought.
We'll have to see. Speaking of structuring deals, let's go to the MLB. Kyle Tucker is going to the Dodgers.
Probably the biggest non-football related news I'd say this week, right?
It's huge.
What kills me about this, Ryan, is I didn't hear a peep about the Dodgers even being interested in Kyle Tucker. I never heard that they were in on him, that they were talking to him. There was no word about this. And then all of a sudden, I get a notification from Jeff Passan, Kyle Tucker, 4 years, $240 million. He's making $60 million a year, Ryan.
That seems absurd. Who is even the competition now? Like, it just
I
seems like
like
the
it. I
Dodgers are
liken this
writing the
to
three-peat.
how people felt when KD went to the Warriors. Now, I don't liken the move to KD to the Warriors, but I do feel like the sentiment with fans is similar to how they felt when KD went to the Warriors. What's
Mm.
the point of playing the season now?
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
barring severe injuries, because let me tell you, the Dodgers could easily lose 2 to 3 of their top 6 or 7 players and still probably be World Series favorites.
That's insane.
That's how much talent they have. It's insane. They could lose Shohei Ohtani. People widely believe Shohei to be the best player in baseball. They could lose him and still be World Series favorites.
You
That
know,
is that is just is it's crazy the amount of talent that they have built.
you know what's crazy is I remember this had to be a few years ago because I don't remember when he went to the Dodgers, but I remember seeing his contract and not even those numbers, they're not even, there's no equivalent in football. There's none. And I remember texting you and I was like, is this man worth this money? Like, I can't
You
believe
did.
it. I
You
can't
did.
believe
You
it.
did.
I mean, and so
And
far,
what I tell you,
yes. Yes.
what I tell you, he's special.
Yeah.
But then in contrast, right? So Kyle Tucker in 2025, right? So last season, this is the season that he just quote unquote got paid for.
Hmm.
He hit 266, 22 home runs, and 73 RBIs. He played 136 games. So he missed 26 games and he just got paid $60 million a year. Now, in Kyle Tucker's defense, okay, outside of last season, he's a three-time All-Star. He won a Gold Glove in 2022. He won a Silver Slugger in the outfield for 2023. And in that same year, he also led the league in RBI. But the last time I checked, when it comes to free agency, this is very much a what have you done for me lately league. And those numbers that I just read from 2025, that gets you $60 million. Now you know how the Dodgers are with their deferrals. So in that $240 million, there is a $30 million in deferrals. But that puts Cal Tucker now up there as one of the highest paid players, not just currently in baseball, but ever. We got Otani. He's making $70 million a year. We all know about that deal. And then right after him, we got Kyle Tucker at $60 million a year. Juan Soto on the Mets right behind that. He's at $51 million a year. The newly signed, and we'll get into this too, Bo Bichette
Mm.
now getting also paid $42 million a year, as well as Zach Wheeler. And then right behind them, arguably the best hitter in baseball, Aaron Judge, making $40 million a year. So Kyle Tucker is making $20 million more a year than the back-to-back AL MVP. How do we feel about that?
That seems a little absurd.
I really wasn't actually upset prior to this Kyle Tucker move when it comes to the Dodgers. A lot of people have felt this way already. That the
Hmm.
Dodgers are accumulating too much talent. They're just
Hmm.
throwing money around, and it's not fair to the rest of the league. I actually didn't feel that way. You got to understand as well. I'm a Yankees fan, so this is what we used to do, right? This
Hmm.
was the
Hmm.
standard for
Yeah.
Yankees. So I'm like, damn, the Dodgers got it. Like, listen, if you got it, spend it
You
because
know,
I know the Yankees used to do this, but it comes a point where this is just getting a little bit ridiculous. Okay, it's getting a little bit out of hand at this point.
you know what makes me so mad is that the Mets attempt to do this and we're just bad at it. We're bad at it.
You have been bad at it. I look back to the deals that you gave Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander a couple of seasons ago. Between those two, I think I wanted you gave them close to $80 million a year, but between just those two players, and they're both in their late 30s, early 40s at the time. That it's like you're throwing money around because you have it, but you got to throw it around wisely. And you can hate on the Dodgers as much as you want, but the way they've thrown their money around, even slightly before they threw it at Shohei Ohtani, because the Dodgers have been a damn good franchise for the last 8, 9 seasons, right? Going going slightly before COVID. I believe they made the World Series a few years before that too. They've been a good team for a long time now, but they have it down now to where they're just going to start throwing money at people because they have all these deferments that are going to hit them, in the mid 2030s. So I can guarantee you the money that they've got from these last two World Series is probably already paid for the deferments that they got to worry about later on in the future. And they
Honest,
plan on winning more. Do we think that the Dodgers easily could win 2 to 3 more championships within the next 4 to 5 seasons? Like, I don't see anybody even coming close to what they're doing right now.
Anybody but the Dodgers. Anybody but the Dodgers. I don't
I don't
care
know
who
if
it
it
is.
can be anybody but the Dodgers.
You know
And the
what?
crazy the
Ugh.
crazy thing is people really thought even last year, people thought, what's the point of playing the season? We all know the Dodgers are gonna go back to back. But the
Mm-hmm.
Toronto Blue Jays had them 2 outs from losing that World Series. And then you go from that to now you add the best free agent that was in this class. It's just a little bit crazy to me at this point what the Dodgers are doing. And a lot of
Ugh.
teams can't say that their teams can do the same thing, but my team can, and we're just not. And what's frustrated me about the Yankees now at this point is, okay, maybe you don't want to throw money around, or maybe you don't want to get every single player, but do you want to get any player? Because I didn't hear that the Yankees were all in on Tucker. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear about these great deals that they offered him compared to the Dodgers. If the Yankees offered Kyle Tucker 45 to 50 million dollars a year, which I think would have been an overpay, and the Dodgers turned around and said, "You know what? We're going to pay you $60 million to come here instead," and he went there, I'd be like, "You know what? Yankees, you did your due diligence. You
Mm-hmm.
tried."
Mm-hmm.
But I can't even say that. So it's like maybe you don't want some of these players, but why not? We have gaping holes in our lineup, and it's like, why aren't we addressing this? Why are we watching the Dodgers do whatever they want? They barely have holes in their lineup, but the tiniest ones that they do have, they're filling. Why can't we be like that?
I'm so mad at them. I'm so mad that they have Diaz.
You see,
Yeah.
they just have an embarrassment of riches. I completely forgot that they even signed Edwin Diaz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
So they've
their
got the
starting
closer.
lineup is
I
crazy.
can't.
Their
So
bullpen
angry
got
about it.
better when they signed Diaz. Their lineup is an all-star lineup essentially. It's Shohei doesn't even have to pitch.
No.
Okay, this guy is pitching and hitting. He does not have to pitch for that starting rotation to be fantastic.
And the Dodgers have my least favorite player on their team. You know how I
Freddie
feel about
Freeman.
Freddie Freeman.
Oh, that irrational hate.
Cards on
Oh
the
my goodness.
table.
You might be the only person in the world that dislikes Freddie Freeman.
Absolutely, I know that I am. Cards on the table. This happened during 2 years ago when they played the Yankees in the World Series. And Freddie just had the most amazing, he had a great series. Like he just was on top of it all the time. And I was like, I fucking hate this guy. And then, I learn all about him and I'm like, no, he's like the nicest guy in baseball, but I
He's so
irrationally hate
nice.
him. Like I
He's so
just hate him.
nice.
There's
He
no good
hit
reason.
he hit one of the biggest walk-off home runs in baseball history against my team, and I can't bring myself to hate him. I can't do it. He's just
I'll
such a likable player.
I'll hate
I'll
him
hate
for
him
the
on the
both of
field,
us.
but
I'll hate him for the both
please
of us,
do.
Greg.
Please do. Please do. This Kyle Tucker signing now has the Dodgers payroll. Listen to this: 413 million going into next season. The next
Jesus.
closest team behind that is you guys, the Mets,
Yeah.
$295 million.
And
So
who
there is over $115 million gap between your two payrolls.
and who did we just sign?
It's more like who did the Yankees pretend that they were interested in and then let another team sign? Can we just call it that?
I can't.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
not into the Bichette signing. I'm not into it.
No?
No, I'm not into it.
What is that about? Because Bo Bichette's a great hitter.
Sure, but he's had injuries. I
He
worry about
has.
that consistency. Listen, I feel like you come into the Mets inconsistent. It's only going to get worse. Like I don't know. I was looking at the lineup the other day. It's a I don't
Uh-huh.
it's crazy how many unfamiliar names there are. Like obviously they're familiar, but it's such a different lineup than I'm used to seeing. And I don't know. I feel like we could go either way. Yes, he's a great hitter, so obviously happy to have that on the roster, but with injuries and that inconsistency, like I worry about durability. I worry about longevity. And that's, something we need.
I think the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about with this Mets team is, okay, you do have some good hitters in your lineup, but from what I understand, one of the reasons that the Mets were okay with letting Alonso walk was his defense, right?
Hmm.
So you bring on Bichette, you're gonna have him play third base, which he's never played a day in his life. So
Uh-huh.
that's questionable there. You bring on Polanco. Apparently, you're gonna have him play first base, which he also
Hmm.
doesn't really have any real MLB experience with. And it's like Lindor, you got it short, so obviously you're not worried there.
Yep.
But between third and first base, you gotta have some questionable, definitely some questionable times in the infield.
There's no part of me that feels good about this. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think it was smart moves on their part. I'm really questioning the method in which you're working with, but I guess we'll just have to see. But then the other part of me is like, well, that's the Mets. Like, I don't really know what we're expecting. You're spending all this money, but it's not being spent constructively. And it just feels like we're in for another roller coaster of a season that
And
has us not making the playoffs.
they have to address the pitching.
Yeah.
You got hitters. I'm not necessarily worried about the offense, especially now that you added Bichette. But you got to address the pitching, especially if you're going to have pitchers in your rotation that pitch to contact.
Hmm.
There's going to be a lot of contact in that infield. And like I just said, you're going to have to be worried about a lot of things defensively if, Bichette doesn't immediately take to third or Polanco doesn't take to first base. You're going to have a lot to worry about. So you might be able to outslug some teams, but you can't try to rely on your lineup every night to give you 5, 6
No.
runs because while I
Yeah.
do think this Mets offense got a lot better with Bichette, I don't think they can be that comfortable to where they don't go out and try to get at least one, stud of a pitcher.
Agreed. I mean, I think that's where I'm not feeling very confident in that position right now. So, and I'm so sad that Diaz is gone. Just what are we even doing? Why would you not just pay this man? So, I don't know. We'll have to see. I think it's going to be another roller coaster of a season, and I don't have high hopes, but I love my Mets, and just gonna keep going on a wing and a prayer with them.
Well, at least you can at least either complain or celebrate free agent signings. The Yankees
True.
continue to twiddle their thumbs. They allowed another free agent and Bichette to get scooped up elsewhere. My concern with Bellinger now because the most recent update is that they offered him, I think it was 5 years, 160, I think was the final offer, with two opt-outs. One opt-out after the second year, another opt-out after the third year. And from what it seems like, they're not budging on that. I'm not mad at that.
Hmm.
I think after Kyle Tucker got signed, one of my biggest concerns was, well, Bellinger just saw Kyle Tucker get paid $60 million. Like he's gonna be looking at Boris. Like, did you see his numbers last year? Did you see Kyle Tucker's numbers last year? He just got
Hmm.
60 million with
Yeah.
those numbers. I can definitely get more than what the Yankees are offering me, but I don't think the market is out there like that for Bellinger. I haven't really heard of any other team talking to him like that. And I think the one team that probably could go in there and pay him what he wants is the Mets. But at this point, that is one thing I would not be upset about
Hmm.
because I think if he gets more than what the Yankees are offering him, then it's going to be an overpay. And if another team wants to overpay him, I'm okay with that. I think what the Yankees are offering him is completely fair. It's a good deal, probably even more than what they were originally willing to pay him. And if he doesn't want that, then respectfully, he can walk. I don't think it's the same thing as the Soto situation because the Yankees really did try
Hmm.
their best with Soto,
Hmm.
and I mean the Mets just ended up outbidding them. But I think the Yankees are okay with getting outbid here. I don't think they want to bid against themselves.
Well, this sounds like a perfect case for the Mets to swoop in on. We love
Go
to
for it,
overpay. We love to overpay.
and that would help your defense.
It would. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's chat NBA. What do you got for me?
The Knicks just finished losing a game. I think they made it respectable in the end. I think they lost by about 20, but at halftime, they were down 30. They were down 30 at halftime to the Mavericks, to the Anthony Davis list, Kyrie Irving. Yeah, no Kyrie Irving, no Anthony Davis. I look up at halftime, Knicks are down 30.
Just Cooper
So that's
Flag.
how the just Cooper Flag
Just Cooper
and
Flag.
Max Christie and a bunch of role players had the Knicks down 30 at home on MLK Day. What would MLK say? You see Cooper Flag doing the Knicks like this on
Oh
on his day.
no.
It's
Oh
crazy.
no.
it's, it's not what you want to see. The Knicks have now lost four in a row.
You
I don't
know,
want to say that I said this only a week ago,
yeah.
but I said I was worried about the Knicks, guys. I said I was worried about the Knicks. You know what the Knicks do have in their favor is that the East is just outside of the Pistons, the East is pretty much wide open. So the Knicks have time to get their stuff together, but the Celtics continue to play well.
Mm-hmm.
Celtics continue to play well. They're 11 games over 500. They're 26 and 15 right now. They're in second place. If I'm the Knicks, you can't get complacent. Why are you down 30 at home
That's absurd.
to the Dallas Mavericks?
That's absurd. I mean, listen, we said it last week that we thought the Knicks were going to fumble, and you're seeing it happen in real time. And apologies to the Knicks fans that we did trigger because we've triggered a few, but it's tell stop looking at us and start looking at them. Tell them to get it together. Jalen Brunson can't do it all on his own.
He can't, and everyone's looking at Carl Anthony Towns right now. All eyes are on him. And what I saw today from him, I was not impressed. I was not impressed. And I have not been impressed by him pretty much all season. I think if you kind of look behind the scenes of it, I remember in the beginning of the season, there was an interview. I believe it was still preseason, and Carl Anthony Towns was conducting an interview with the media, and the media asked him, pretty much what do you think your role is going to look like in Mike Brown's offense? And he straight up said, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know your role in the offense? You're the second best player on this team. You're the second best scorer on this team. Some nights you can be the best player on this team, and some nights you can be the best scorer on this team. What do you mean you don't know what your role is in this offense? That was red flag number one for me right there. Boom. I heard that and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's
So
not
now
good.
that I'm kind of seeing how the season is playing out and progressing, I'm feeling like there's some cohesion that's missing between Mike
Hmm.
Brown and Carl Anthony Towns. I don't know if Mike Brown just doesn't know how to use Carl Anthony Towns and his offensive schemes, but we're not seeing the same Carl Anthony Towns that we saw a season ago because that Carl Anthony Towns, I was sure, if not for Tyrese Halliburton, I believe the Knicks would have made the finals last year. Okay. I'm going to
Yeah.
give them props where props is due. There was no one stopping that Pacers team last year. But I
Well, except
saw
for
Carl Anthony
OKC.
Towns, except for OKC. But game seven, injury will a lot of NBA fans think that the outcome would have been different, but that's a story for
Hmm.
another day.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I mean, I saw Carl Anthony Towns be a dog in the postseason last year when Jalen Brunson needed him in those moments. But I have not. I've seen a shell of that person this season. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. I don't see the Celtics necessarily falling off. The Pistons, they're 30 and 10. They or have already established themselves as a top contender in the East. But the Knicks are kind of in free fall mode right now. They lost the last four, and I said this last week. Carl Anthony Towns is going to be included in trade talks. He
Hmm.
has to be because we're all watching the same team right now. Okay, it's not working with them. It's not.
I think this is a great example of you fired a coach last year because you thought the coach was the problem. That wasn't the
Right.
problem.
Yep.
Not the problem at all. In fact, it's become worse since you fired that coach. That I think that was a big part of that cohesion, and it's just not there. I think if the Celtics can keep playing at the level that they're playing at, we keep going strong, we get Jason Tatum back, we could make a real run for it. I believe that in my soul.
You just said get Jason Tatum back.
Yeah, he could come back.
Do
He's been
you
working
do you
hard.
think he's gonna play this season?
I think if they really get it going and are making a good run for it, maybe. I think he could come back. But we said this last week, don't come back if there's not a chance. Then it's pointless. Just come back next year when you're fully healthy. But we could see, I don't know, it depends. I only know Achilles in terms of really football injuries and how that impacts in that way. And obviously, while it's similar, the movement that you have in football versus basketball is very different. So I actually imagine that it's probably more difficult for him to come back because of the amount of movement he has to do while he's on the court. Obviously, I'm not a doctor,
Yeah.
but that would be my assumption. So,
Also not a doctor, but I think the typical rehab, I think it's about like a year.
yeah,
I think typically you miss a full season of basketball, especially since he got hurt in the playoffs last
that
year.
was
That
heartbreaking.
that slated him to miss the entire season, at least from what I understand, because a lot of people don't expect him to be back this year. But from what I mean, he said things that have us feeling like he's ahead of schedule. We've seen some videos of him working out that make us feel like he's a little bit ahead of schedule. So I think Celtics fans are hoping that it's a possibility, but I think smartly also just don't want him to rush himself back and hurt himself for the future. But they're sitting second in the
Yeah,
East right now, so it's kind of like you kind of wonder, it's kind of hard not to wonder what could happen if he does come back.
I think if he comes back, that only makes us stronger. So, I mean, I hope he's able to come back this season, but obviously noting that, like, you know, don't push yourself so hard that you re injure. I mean, I would never want that. So, I mean, as much as I would love him to be back on the court, I understand completely if it's not time because I don't want to hurt our chances for next season. So,
Absolutely understandable.
you know, what I was really interested in this week and what I found to be a really odd piece of news was Anthony Davis. Surgery, no surgery? What are we even doing here? So much misinformation.
So went from like, okay, Anthony Davis is likely to get surgery and miss the rest of the season, and then he called cap on that himself. You don't really see athletes do that often.
Mm-mm. No, very strange.
But yeah, Shams tweeted earlier this week Anthony Davis was gonna green light the surgery that he needed to fix the ligament. And shortly thereafter, Anthony Davis tweeted from his personal X account, "You need to stop believing what you see on these apps." And not too long thereafter, Shams tweeted again. Anthony Davis has decided not to undergo surgery after a second opinion. And you very rarely see Shams backtrack like that.
Yeah, I question that whole thing. Nothing about that seems okay. Like something fishy's going on there, for sure.
Now, Anthony Davis has been in trade talks, right? So actually, for him, and I mean, probably even more so for the Mavs, that injury couldn't have come at a worse time, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was his way of saying, listen, there's still a chance I could play this season, like
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
he for the Mavs, or I don't want to be in Dallas, so listen up, other teams. Like, don't think that you can't trade for me now because I'm not actually going to get surgery. So I don't know what the purpose of that was, but what would really be ironic after all this is if he doesn't play another game this season anyway.
I don't know what weird shit went down with the trade with him and Luca, but like ever since then, it's just been awful for him. Like just straight up awful.
It was bad. There was a bad juju around that entire trade the
Mm-hmm.
moment it happened. The moment it
Mm-hmm.
happened. And ironically, the reason we can trust Shams on certain things is because he's the one that dropped that Luka Doncic trade. He was the
Mm-hmm.
one where we were like, is he hacked? Is he hacked? And then once we realized that the news was legit, we were like, oh shit, maybe Adrian Wojnarowski has officially passed the torch to Shams. Like Shams
Mm-hmm.
is the insider guy now. So when we
Mm-hmm.
see him backtrack on the Anthony Davis surgery injury news, it's just like, what happened here?
Yeah.
Because yeah, Shams takes his credibility very seriously. So it just
Yeah.
makes us wonder what happened behind the scenes on this one.
He's like the Adam Schefter of the NBA. That I consider them
Absolutely.
to be like the same. like the same person,
Absolutely.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Yeah. They're both top
That's
insiders for their respective sports.
that makes me think that Shams had it correct and Anthony Davis, like you said, was trying to manipulate something because I don't believe that he would report that if it wasn't like extremely accurate.
No, I agree. I agree.
Jonathan Kaminga wants a trade. After reading about this, I think they should just let him go.
To be honest, it's like kind of a no story. And
Yeah.
we all knew prior to the season, there's obvious friction between Steve Kerr and Jonathan Kaminga. What that friction is, nobody can speak to because from a fan perspective, when we see Kaminga play, we can see that there is talent there. He's
Hmm.
extremely athletic. His jump shot has improved since his rookie season. He has great court vision. So him as a player has never really been the issue. So when we look at Steve Kerr, we're like, why are you not playing this guy? There has to be something more to it. But that may never come to light. But we all knew this relationship was due for a divorce at some point. I don't even know why they ended up giving him the extension that they gave him because I thought they were going to trade him before the season started.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then it's like he signs the extension before the season. It's like, okay, so maybe Steve Kerr is actually going to be committed to keeping him in the rotation.
Hmm.
But now we're sitting here is January 19th. He hasn't seen court time in over a month. Every night
Yeah.
it's a DNP. So it's like I'm very unsurprised that he requested a trade. And the Warriors need to get out of this relationship with him.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just let him just try to thrive elsewhere because he's wasting his potential sitting on this bench.
You know, what do you think about the state of that locker room? I always feel like Golden State is like such a really weird team and that they have a bunch of talent, but like there are people who make the locker room slightly toxic. Like I'm wondering if if Kaminga's toxic in that locker room. I feel like Draymond Green is definitely toxic in that locker room. Like I just don't really know what the plan is for Golden State.
It's probably been a weird locker room since the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole incident.
Mm, hmm.
Because
Hmm.
it's like you got to understand that like players don't forget about that.
Yeah.
And even younger players come into the league, don't forget about that. No one can know for sure what goes on behind doors there, but the roster construction is not conducive to being an extremely competitive team,
Hmm.
especially not in the West
Yeah.
where you got the Nuggets with Jokic, the
Ugh,
Thunder
Jokic.
with SGA and that entire team, the Rockets with KD, and there's a lot of good teams in the West. And the
Hmm.
Warriors have like a decent team, but even the other day, Jimmy Butler admitted he's like, this is a mediocre team. Like we're a mediocre team. They're very much like 500, like okay team. And Steph Curry is still very, very good, but he doesn't have the same type of
Hmm.
pieces around him
Hmm.
that that team needs. I think that place has been like kind of messed up since Bob Myers walked away and
Hmm.
started doing TV instead. And maybe he saw it coming. He's like, you know what? I'll just work for ESPN because there's too much going on in Golden State.
Not
Draymond's
gonna do
giving
that
me a damn
anymore. Yeah.
headache. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I feel like when Clay Thompson left, that was something too. You know, like he always seemed like a person who would retire from Golden State. Like
It's a big culture piece.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The way that that relationship ended just wasn't the best, even from a fan's point of view, because a lot of people understand that Clay wanted a certain amount of money. And I think he felt that it was owed to him to an extent because of what he meant to those championship runs with Golden State.
Hmm.
But, and the fans, wanted to pay him to an extent, but we also saw the decline in his game
Mm-hmm.
and said, you know what, Clay, you're not necessarily worth the dollars that you're asking for, even though it may be warranted because of what you meant. You're just not that player anymore. But
Hmm.
when the Warriors decided, you know what, we're okay with letting him walk away, I think that's just a huge culture change in there. Because, like you
Hmm.
said, a lot of people expected him to retire a
Yeah.
Warrior. So you take that element, you take the splash, bro, away from Steph. Yeah, the locker
Hmm.
room was definitely doomed to change after that. And I don't know. I don't know. I think the year that they traded for Jimmy when they initially got him midway through that season, I thought that team had a pretty good construction, but then, Steph gets hurt against
Hmm.
Minnesota and the rest is history.
I forever will love Jimmy Butler for being very emo during that like short period of time where he, do you remember that?
Never forget.
Oh my God, it was so good. Oh, Jimmy had to get out of Miami.
He was in Miami. He went a whole season with his like player profile picture when they flashed it on the TV during games. It was the emo
Oh my God.
hairstyle with all the piercings. He's so unserious.
Oh my God, I love it. That was so funny. I laughed so hard seeing that picture for the first time. I was like, oh my God, Jimmy. Let me ask you this question. How much longer do you think Steve Kerr's got?
That's actually a really good question. I don't know what his contract details are. I don't know how many more years he has left on his deal, but he might be another one of those coaches where, okay, it's nice that we've had you tenured here for so long. You've meant a lot to the culture, but they might need a change.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard because Steph is still there, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they want to separate Steve Kerr and
Yeah.
Steph, but they might have to if they
Mm-hmm.
seriously want another real chance at a championship before Steph retires,
Yeah.
then maybe a coaching change is what's necessary. But I'm of the mindset that they just need to build better parts around Steph. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they have the spacing necessary to make him good. They don't have enough shooters on that team. They've been playing small ball for years. It drives me crazy. They never want to have a true big in the lineup. They haven't had one since like Kevon Looney, JaVale McGee. They just refuse to go and get an actual big. And I think Steph could
Mm-hmm.
use a player like that, which is why I'm like, go out and try to get Giannis. Make a trade for Giannis. Be aggressive. Steph only has so many years left. We all know that's my favorite player. I want to see
Yeah.
him try to get to another NBA finals before his career's over. Like,
Well,
and I feel like the clock's ticking. Okay? Clock's ticking, guys. Get it together.
Ray wants to see it happen. Let's go. In positive news, Harden passed Shaq to be the ninth overall in scoring of all time. So congrats to Harden. I don't think he's going to get a ring.
I don't see that in his future. Actually, the Los Angeles Clippers, though, to their credit, have played extremely good ball the last several weeks. They started the season terribly, but they've been really, really good the last few weeks. And Kawhi Leonard has turned the clock back somehow, some way. I don't get how he does this once every few years,
Mm-hmm.
where he just looks like that player that was in Toronto. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that team's been really, really up and down this season, but they're in one of the ups right now. But no, kudos to James
Yeah.
Harden, and then Kevin Durant just passed Dirk
Mm-hmm.
Nowitzki
Yeah.
to
That's
be
crazy.
sixth all time in scoring, and that's something crazy.
That is.
And
Congratulations.
they were teammates.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it is difficult in any sport to have longevity because of just the toll that it takes on your body. So I always think it's really important to give these guys flowers because that's not something that everybody is capable of doing. Some guys will come in hot to the NBA and they'll only play one season. They'll get injured, they'll never recover, you know, and same that happens in all the major sports. So, important to celebrate these positive moments for sure. I don't think he'll get a ring, but it's good that he made this list. You know?
You're talking about James still?
Yeah, James. Obviously, I know KD has rings. I remember those
Uh,
years. They were horrible.
Not for me.
Yeah, I know. They were horrible for me. I was a LeBron fan.
And I'm still of the mindset that he'd have one more in Brooklyn, guys, if not for the big toe.
And the flat earther.
And that damn anti-vax flat. No, I'm just kidding. We love you, Kyrie.
Well, Ray does. I do not. But, kudos. You know what? I'm not going to be mad. He did win a ring with LeBron. And
Which is why I disliked him for so long.
but he's
He
never
did.
won
He
another one,
did.
right?
He's never won another one.
Because
He
he
should
can't
have.
because he can't
And
win without LeBron.
no. Next on the list for Kevin Durant, Michael Jordan.
Ooh, I don't know. He could, yeah.
KD sits at 31,562, and Michael Jordan is less than 1,000 points ahead of him, 32,292 points. So he has about 700 more points to get there. Doable this season, maybe.
But
Brooke Lopez just passed Magic Johnson on the all-time scoring list.
who is Rick Lopez?
Brooke, no, Brooke
Oh, Brooke
Lopez.
Lopez.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
still
yeah.
going to ask the same question.
You don't know him? Little curly head dude.
Nope.
Plays on the Bucks or used to.
I always think it's so interesting when people start passing people on those lists because it
Mm-hmm.
does make me sad to see like some records that are passed in that way. But then I think like, KD could pass Michael Jordan and Michael Jordan is still Michael Jordan. Like that
Right.
record I think doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying in terms of what
A
the
lot of that is
greats. Yeah.
longevity.
Yeah. True. And you know what? Listen, I think and don't even get me started. If it had not been for Jerry Krause, Michael Jordan definitely would have had number 7. They would have come back. Guarantee it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I think the greats, even when you surpass assist records or points, any of those things, that doesn't change the cultural touchstone that they have, that they've created in within the league. Magic Johnson will never be replaced by anybody, no matter how many people outscore him. Same with Jordan, same with Bill Russell, same with Wilt Chamberlain. These are seminal figures in this league. Larry Bird.
Untouchables.
Yeah. Moving on to the next segment. No replays, no excuses, just the takes. This is Fair or Foul. This week, we're talking about the current state of baseball. We touched on it earlier today with the Kyle Tucker of it all. But I got to tell you, Ray, my knowledge of baseball in this area was very limited. And so I did what every good podcasting host should do, and that is research. Even so much as to call you on Sunday with my complete disbelief in what I was actually reading, which is baseball does not have salary cap. And I think that's horrible.
I was shocked to find out that you didn't know that.
Yeah,
That
I
is
had no
one of the
idea.
biggest, that's one of the biggest reasons that people have such an issue with what the Dodgers are doing right now.
Yeah.
Because there is no salary cap, there's no salary floor, which means there's also no minimum that these teams have to spend on their roster. A lot of fan bases like the Pirates, the Marlins, they want to see their team spend more money, but the owners don't have to. It's as simple as that. They don't have to.
Well, I
But then you
think
have the teams like the Dodgers that just want to spend as much money as they want to, and people don't like that.
it's not just as simple as the owners don't want to spend that money. I don't fully believe that's true. Take Detroit, take Cincinnati. What are we even saying here? They can't compete with that kind of money. And it doesn't matter who owns them. That's not, they don't have the revenue. It's just not possible for them to compete in that way. And then, like, what kind of sport do you have where it's like only specific teams that have these monopolies on player personnel? Foul. I'm calling foul. I don't like it at all.
It's tough for me, like I said earlier, because the Yankees are a bigger market team. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I saw the Yankees doing this, or if any fan of a team saw their team doing this, we wouldn't be upset. So it's hard for me from a Yankees perspective and having that history where we have been that team where we just go out and pay whoever the hell we want. Come over here, come play for us. If there's other teams offering you this amount, that's okay. We'll double that. Come pull up. Come play with us. The Yankees have always been like that. That's how we got the evil empire tag. But it's hurting my soul because the Dodgers have turned into the evil empire. They are the
Mm-hmm.
embodiment of what the Yankees used to be. So now that I'm seeing it work against my team, nah, I'm calling that. I'm actually going to call foul on this too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's to the extent with which it's happening. Okay. A lot of the Yankee talent, especially when you go to the late 90s and the early 2000s, they had great players, but a lot of that was homegrown talent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Jeter and Mo and Andy Pettit and Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams, like a lot of these players just were homegrown Yankees. But the entire Dodgers lineup at this point has been accumulated through free agency pickups. That's what it feels like. And their rotation, same thing. And they're just throwing money at whoever they want. So not only is it frustrating for these other fan bases, but makes them look at their own owners and they're saying, maybe you don't have to spend exactly like the Dodgers do. But when you got some of these teams that have significantly like lower payrolls, like I saw a stat the other day, Kyle Tucker's making $60 million a year now. The Miami Marlins entire roster, their payroll going into 2026 is 69 million.
That's insane.
Think
That's
about that for a
insane.
second.
I understand when you are a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees and you do well consistently, you're not going to have high draft picks. It's not, similar to the NFL. You're just not going to have them unless, you trade for them or whatever it is that you do. So I understand that this is the route you have to go, but to not have a cap and then add in that you can get out of heavy luxury task through deferments and there's no cap on that, that's absurd.
That is crazy.
You are known between the two of us as the stat guy, but let me rattle off some numbers for you because I
You
wrote
have
some of this.
stats?
I wrote
Oh,
this
I
down.
love
Okay,
this.
it's
I
not really
love
stats,
it.
but I
Let's
wrote
hear
down
it.
numbers. Okay,
Okay.
every other major league has a cap. NFL 279 million, NBA 154 million, the NHL 95 million. Now, the NHL is low, obviously, because they don't get the numbers that the other sports get. But this discrepancy is absurd.
That is a little crazy. I didn't realize how low the NHL was in
So
comparison
low.
to the other major sports. Yeah, that
It's
is a little
so
crazy.
interesting to read their deals versus because you can have like an insanely high deal in the NHL, barely what a receiver makes in
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
the NFL. And now, there are all these highest paying, like I think right now was Dak, I think, is the highest paid. Is he the highest paid quarterback? Whatever it is, all of these very high paid players in the NFL, it's like they don't even hold a candle. I saw Juan Soto's deal and I was like, this is real?
51 million a year for that man.
That's crazy.
51 million a year for that man.
And listen, I know you guys put yourself out there for our enjoyment. It takes a lot of toll on your body, on your mind to play the sport that you love at the level that you have to play it. But that's insane. Help a girl out and pay her student loans, okay? Come on.
The money that baseball players see is a little crazy. The Major League Baseball does it differently as well because if you look at the length of some of these deals, it's nothing like the NBA.
Mm,
I believe a super max in the NBA, I want to say it's 5 year or 5 year deal is the most amount of time that you can sign. But what was Juan Soto's deal? Was it like 15 years?
yeah, it was something really elongated, which is not the same as it is in the NFL either. Like, that's not, nobody would ever
No.
sign that deal. Like,
No, no,
you kidding?
of course not.
Yeah.
Especially in a sport where injury is more
Mm,
likely
hmm.
than a
Hmm.
lot of these other major American sports. But
Yeah.
no, the length of some of these deals, and that's what makes the money look the way that it does. That's why
Hmm.
Otani got paid what he got paid, $700 million deal, because they can extend it over these crazy long amounts of time.
So, my big fear in this is that the collective bargaining agreement expires December 1st. Are we even going to see a baseball season in 2027?
Most people are under the assumption that we're not going to see baseball in 2027. This is just widely accepted at this point. There's too much disconnect, I think, right now between the league and its players, between owners and its players. There's been a lot of rule changes the last few years that players haven't been happy about. There's a lot of things in these deals that players aren't happy about. A lot of things that fans aren't happy about when it comes to things like the salary caps. And then a lot of the owners are looking at the Dodgers like, this isn't fair to us.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the owners themselves are going to want to do something about this too. But then the players at the same time are like, okay, but I just saw what Kyle Tucker got paid. I don't
Hmm.
want that to change.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to jeopardize me potentially seeing 50, $60 million a year. So there's going to be a lot that needs to be discussed and maybe too much to the point where they won't be able to come to an agreement, which makes me terribly sad. I love baseball. There's no part of me that wants to see a lockout, but I think something needs to get done
Hmm.
about this. And I don't want to sound like a hater again because like I know if it was the Yankees, I'd be on top of the world right now. So happy that we just signed our 10th All-Star. But I'm looking at it from an outside perspective and I'm just like even if the Yankees made a splash right now, boom, we trade for Tariq Skubal. Do I think that's enough for us to get past the Dodgers still? No. No, I think we're about five or six moves. I think every team is at least four, five, six moves away from being as good as the Dodgers. And I know the Blue Jays had them 2 outs away from losing in the World Series last year, but the Dodgers just got significantly better
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
season. Think about that. It's scary. It's very scary.
I mean, I just outside of a mass rash of injuries, like I don't know how other teams are really going to be able to compete with this. You know what makes me so mad about the system is the Mets don't even do it right. All this money,
Mm-hmm.
we
Yep.
can't even buy ourselves a World Series for fuck's sake.
Yep. It was an embarrassment that the Mets didn't make the
My
playoffs last
God, we
season with
lost
the
to the
amount of money
Reds.
that they spent.
You know what's funny is my older brother is a Reds fan, and he was like laughing at me the whole time. He was like, "I can't believe you." And I was like, "Me neither." It's like I can't even. What are we even saying? What are we even doing? I think that's what's most frustrating. And I mean, but I can't imagine even, you and I sit here both rooting for teams who pay obscene amounts of money. And I can't imagine what it's like to be a Marlins fan. Could you imagine?
$69 million a year, guys. Entire roster.
Oof. Yeah, I agree something needs to be done. I think there needs to be a cap. I understand players not being happy about that, but at the end of the day, you cannot have a functioning league with this stuff that's happening. It just doesn't work. There's no fun in it anymore.
Even as good as the Dodgers were last year, right? If we think about their regular season, they had a pedestrian regular season. They won
Hmm.
93 games last year.
Hmm. Yeah.
The Yankees won more games than them in the regular season. But then what did the Dodgers do? They go into the playoffs. They face the Reds first round, sweep them 2-0. Go on to play the Phillies. The Phillies had a pretty good team last year. Dodgers win that series 3-1. They go on to the NLCS. They sweep the Brewers 4-0. And then we all saw what happened in the World Series. They won in game 7. But they
Mm.
coasted. Once
Hmm.
once the lights turned on, they
Hmm.
coasted through the playoffs, as they should have. They're doing it again.
Mm.
I hate to see it, but they are doing it again.
Has any team done the three-peat in baseball?
The last team to do so were the 98, 99, and 2000 Yankees.
Really? Oh, so you're fellas.
My guys, the last time we were relevant outside of 2009,
Mm.
before I watched baseball. So since baseball has been relevant to me, my team has won one championship.
Well, it's better than mine. So there you go. Just be happy you're not the Mets.
I can always sleep easier knowing that.
That you're not a Mets fan? Yeah, I bet it's great.
It is. It is.
Of all the teams I could have
It could always
chosen.
be worse. You could always be a Mets fan. So I tell myself.
Ugh. Well, I don't think I could be. I do like the city of Boston, so I did contemplate rooting for the Red Sox, but I feel like if I did that, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Celtics, okay. Red Sox, not
No,
okay.
we're we're done. Friendship's over. Well, I'll be interested to see what happens. I mean, hopefully they make some headway before the collective bargaining agreement expires, but I agree with you. It doesn't look good. Every commentator I've seen talk about this has just had the lowest of hopes for a 2027 season.
Yeah, it's not looking promising, but hopefully Major League Baseball can surprise us. I'm more worried about the owners kind of budging on certain things as opposed to the league, but maybe they can prove us wrong. The fans
Well,
want baseball,
yeah.
and there's no benefit to a lockout for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And it's not in the short run at least. You know what I mean? They're going to lose too much money, so hopefully they can figure things out.
Yeah. Let's hope. I want baseball back
Yes, and
consistently.
we got the World Baseball Classic coming up this spring. Can't wait for that. Go USA!
That'll be fun.
Yeah, so much fun. Have you ever seen any World Baseball Classic games, Ryan?
I haven't, so it'll be fun to watch. Who's our
You-
main competition when that happens? Dominican Republic?
The Dominican Republic is always up there. You know,
Yeah.
their talent's insane. But the last World Baseball Classic in 2023, the United States actually lost in the championship round to Japan.
Yeah.
Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout to end that
Oof.
game. They were teammates still at the time, and that was the first time they
That's
had ever played, the
wow.
first time they had ever faced each other. He struck Mike Trout out, and Mike Trout was the tying run at the plate.
Do you think that MLB will do what the NFL and now surprisingly the NBA is doing, where they play games in different countries, where they play regular season games in different countries?
Yeah, they've been doing that.
Have they?
Yes, they do I believe this is every year. They do a London series.
Mm,
So I know the Yankees have played the Red Sox over there before. But yeah, they've been trying to branch out outside of the US, try to grow the game a little bit more. They've also been doing like really cool like games in season too. Like the Field of Dreams game is a good
mm,
example.
hmm.
And there's a few other kind of interesting things that they do in the middle of the season. But yeah, they're trying a few different ideas
That's interesting because I feel like baseball is more universal. I feel like it's played by more people outside of the US than
globally.
the NFL. Yeah, I feel like it has more of a global reach than the NFL or the NBA. I was
Well,
shocked the NBA is playing overseas.
yeah, so that
I
might
don't like
be
it.
why the NFL is trying to play more games like that, though, to expand their brand because football is an extremely Americanized
Oh,
sport
for sure.
and definitely not half as popular outside of the states as it is inside. So I think a large part of them playing, overseas is to try to garner that attention. But I think MLB has a good amount of fans around the world, so they
Hmm.
actually don't have to worry about that.
I think it's interesting that we've seen, I think, an influx of kickers from like Ireland and Australia. And that seems to be a position where we're getting more people from around the world. But it is interesting to watch us try desperately to move the sport around the world.
Right.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But but like there's a big like the Packers have like a big fan base in Germany, which I feel like makes sense because there are a lot of German people that move to Wisconsin. But like that, so like they have a big fan base there. So it's just interesting to see what people are attaching themselves to in that way.
And then when I think about the London series with baseball, I do feel like I don't really hear about much interest coming from baseball in that
Hmm.
area of the world. So maybe that's why they target that specifically to, try to push their brand. Because if they
I,
go to certain other countries, baseball is huge almost
hmm
everywhere, but London, maybe not so much.
I think in Europe it's not as like important. I think people think of baseball like as much as people think of like American football as like that's our sport. Baseball is, the America's pastime.
It's right
So
up there, yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people who just associate baseball with the United States. Maybe now
Absolutely,
more so
yeah.
like Japan or Dominican Republic, but I do feel, you know, this is off topic. I don't know if I'll keep it in the show. You know what I find really, really interesting is I was listening to a report, I think like a couple of years ago, about the decline in African American men playing baseball. That has like been a population that has drastically shifted
No part of
within
that surprises me.
the MLB.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised by that at all. It's never really been, even when I was growing up, I was always one of the only young black men that was interested in baseball. I mean, I had some friends that were interested too, but even now, when I do find other black men that can talk baseball with me, I'm often surprised, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
because it's always like basketball or football.
Mm.
I don't know what it is. Baseball is definitely like more slow paced, and I do understand why people look at it and say, "Wow, like that's a very boring sport to watch." But I've always loved baseball.
Well,
I taught myself baseball. So to
mhm.
me, it's more of the nostalgia with it too.
Well, I think one of the things that's also happened is as city landscapes have changed and baseball parks find themselves not available in cities, that's
Right.
shifted things as well. It's not a sport that's played in the city anymore.
Right. Yeah,
Whereas
that's
I feel
true.
like there was a time where that happened, but it's easier to put up a basketball court on concrete than it
Hmm.
is to,
Very true.
you know, have a baseball field. So it's interesting to look at that because I think like if you were to go back like 40 or 50 years, that's not the case. Black men were much more prominent in that sport.
Yeah, I agree.
Hmm, interesting. All right, it's time for my favorite segment, trash cans, which is basically one person's rant on what is bothering them the most this week in sports. All right, Ray, trash cans. What do you got for me this week?
So I'm sitting there watching the Panthers Rams game. This was week one of the NFL playoffs, the wild card. And the Panthers were the home team in the game. So now, admittedly, I haven't watched any Panthers football this year. So I'm like, okay, the Panthers must have had a pretty good season, right? They're hosting the Rams. I'm like, I know the Rams had a good season because Matthew Stafford had a great year and it reflected in their record. I'm like, okay, the Panthers had a better record than them then. So then I go to look at the standings and the Panthers are 8-9. I'm like, okay, the Rams are 12-5. Why are the Panthers hosting the Rams? Then there's another game that came on. It's the Steelers playing the Texans. Okay. Steelers were 10-7. They're home against the 12-5 Texans. I'm like, what is going on here? So it was explained to me that division winners automatically get home field advantage. And I I don't like it. That's trash to me because you get situations like the Panthers who didn't even finish 500 hosting a team in the Rams that went 12-5. Like we're not talking about just one more victory. Like the Rams won four more games than the Panthers did. So to put this into perspective, I did a little bit of research. I wanted to see if this happened last season, okay, where a team with a worse record won their division and hosted a team with a better record. So last year, okay, Texans, they won the AFC South. They went 10-7. They hosted the Chargers, who went 11-6. So I dove into it a little bit more because I wanted to see what the divisions looked like, right? So the Texans, they won their
Mhm.
division. They went 10-7. The Colts were also in that division. They went 8-9. And then you got the Jags, who went 4-13 last season, and the Titans, who went 3-14 that season as well. So then I'm like, okay, let me look at the Chargers division, right? Because the
Mhm.
Texans went 10-7 in a weak division and won a very weak division. So I'm like, okay, let me look at the Chargers, right? So they in the AFC West. You know, with some dogs in the AFC West. We got the Chiefs. They went 15-2. We got the Broncos. They went 10-7. Finished third in their division, by the way. Okay, same record as the Texans, who won the AFC South. Let's look at some of the teams that the Texans won and lost against that season to go 10-7. Okay. So some of their wins, they beat the Colts twice. The Colts went 8-9, by the way. They beat the Bears. They beat the Jags twice. So the Jags went 4-13. They beat the Bills. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Dolphins. And they beat the Titans. Okay. Remember, the Titans went 3-14. Some of their losses last year. They lost to the Vikings 34-7. Got their ass beat. They lost to your Packers.
Mhm.
They lost to the Jets, who went 5-12. They lost to the Lions. They lost to those same Titans who went 3-14. One of those three victories was against the Texans, who hosted a playoff game. And then they lost to the Chiefs and they lost to the Ravens. Some other oddities from last postseason, 2024. Okay. The 10-7 Bucks, NFC South, hosted the 12-5 Commanders. Let's look at the rest of the NFC South. This extremely tough division, right? That the Bucks worked so hard to win to host this playoff game. The Falcons went 8-9. The Panthers and the Saints both went 5-12. So no other team in that division finished over 500. The Commanders, however, were in the same division as the Eagles, who went 14-3. And then the Cowboys went 7-10. We know they always think of the joint, and we already know about the Giants. They went 3-14. Lastly, the 10-7 Rams from the 2024 season, they hosted, listen, this is the most egregious one, Ryan. They hosted the 14-3 Vikings. The only reason the Vikings didn't win that division, oh, because they were also in the same division with the 15-2 Lions.
Hmm.
And you know how they got rewarded by going 14-3?
Mm.
They got to go to their first game on the road. The Rams in that same division, the next best team in that division was the Seahawks, 10-7. Same record as the Rams. And then the Cards were 8-9, the 49ers went 6-11. And don't you know the Vikings, 14-3, went on the road to the Rams, to LA. And what did Sam Darnold do?
He
What the
darnels.
hell does Sam Darnold do? Oh my goodness. This whole playoff formatting is trash. We're going to let teams like the Panthers in this postseason who didn't even finish over 500 or at 500 host a team that went 12-5. It makes no sense to me. Mind you, that game was very close. The Panthers almost won that game. Now imagine how it look if the 8-9 Panthers bounced the 12-5 Rams just because they got home field advantage. It's just ridiculous. Do you know the NBA playoffs used to do this? Okay. They actually used to do this. And I remember fans being so up in arms about this, and they eventually changed the rule because it's so ridiculous. So it used to be the exact same thing. East and West, they both have four divisions. So the four division winners, it used to guarantee you a top four playoff spot and therefore home court advantage, at least for the very first round. But after the 2014-2015 season, the Blazers won their division and they finished at the four seed. They had 51 wins. And the five seed and the six seed both had 55 wins. They just didn't win their division. After that season, where the Blazers finished at the four seed with four less wins than the two teams under them, the NBA met in September and they changed it to it's just playoff seeding by record now. There
Yeah.
are no more division winners. There's none of that. It's the top 8 to 10 records make the playoffs. The NFL needs to take notes because I'm not trying to see the 8-9 Panthers host a home game after shit in the bed all season to barely win their division. The only team in the playoffs that didn't finish over 500. You're in one of the worst divisions in football, and you get to start the playoffs by hosting that game over a team that went 12-5. Okay. I don't like it. It's trash.
He said it. It's trash.
That's trash cans.
I'm not as bothered by that as you are, but I get it. I don't disagree with you. I think it creates a lot of competition to get home field advantage and that bye week. But sometimes I don't like the bye week because I think that can really throw you off your rhythm.
You think so?
It
I've
depends.
always wondered about that. I wonder the stats on that about teams
Yeah,
that have a bye week in their record that very first game.
it has not always worked out well for the Packers. I will tell you that. That sometimes does throw us off our rhythm, but as does do our kickers, really just the one kicker. But I think that's an interesting concept to do that. I find now that we're getting in playoffs the wild card race because it used to be only two teams and now they've opened it up where they're three. And so in doing that, you've made it so that you realize that like a whole division could just go to the playoffs.
That is interesting to me. Yes, I do realize that.
And I do think that next year, if the Vikings get it together, you could see the entire NFC North in the playoffs, which would be insane. But that's how competitive that division is. It could be. I mean, obviously the Vikings didn't make it much of a competition there, but like last year, three NFC North teams went to the playoffs.
Every NFC North team finished over 500 this year.
That's true. We did.
The Bears went 11-6, and every other team won 9 games.
We had a damn
The
tie.
Packers, they did have a tie. They also lost the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah, it was rough stuff for us.
That
Yeah.
didn't that didn't uh that didn't spell success for you
You
going
know
into
what,
this
though? The
postseason.
only reason I wasn't that perturbed about that going into the postseason was that Jordan Love had been out for 2 games. Like, actually, people had been able to rest in a weird way that I think made them better when they came back for that Bears game. We just couldn't hold, we couldn't sustain. But you know,
That man Caleb Williams got to you.
he did. He did. And our kicker
Ben
failed
Johnson.
us. And listen, it's not all them. A lot of times I think what people don't always take into account when they're talking about playoff games is how much one team can just literally implode on themselves. Like for instance, we can look at the Seahawks and the 49ers. Did the Seahawks play excellent football? Absolutely. But did the 49ers completely implode? Also, yes. They couldn't
See,
even make that a competitive game.
when I think implode, I don't even think about it in that context because that to me, implode would suggest that at one point you were intact. I don't think the 49ers were ever intact in that game. That was
No,
just
yeah.
an ass whipping from beginning to end. When
But
I think implode,
yeah.
I think, you know, the game is somewhat close and you just
You think that's what it, yeah. Okay.
completely do something that fucks your team.
But I would say I use the word implode because that was not necessarily expected from the 49ers. Yeah, they had people injured, but Christian McCaffrey is still Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy is, I'm not all the way sold on him, but he's not bad.
He's
So
solid.
he's solid. But I think that like that to me, they couldn't get anything off the ground and they just literally imploded. And you do see that from time to time, obviously in the playoffs. I will say that this round of playoffs I feel has been more exciting than playoffs that I've seen in the past. But I mean, listen, when your team just spanks the shit out of another team, you love it. You don't even care. You don't even need it to be a good game because you were like, yeah, we fucking killed you. That's the way I felt when we played Dallas that one year. Jordan Love just rolled into Dallas, Texas and was like, nah, sit down. We got it. And they just beat the crap out of them. It was great.
It's been a few weeks
It was great.
since I heard anyone mention Dallas, and I'm happy that that's my first mention that I get of it was how they
Hmm.
lost that game.
Yeah. I watched that whole documentary on Netflix about them, which is interesting because I don't like the Cowboys, but I do like documentaries. Actually, I like Troy Aikman. So that was part of my reason of watching it. And part of the documentary is looking back, and then part of it is like in the 2023 season. And man, they were just so excited for that game. And nothing made me smile more than watching them completely fall apart. I was a giddy Packer fan watching that documentary. I liked it. It was nice.
You smiled pretty hard watching the Bears lose.
I did. I almost sent a picture of myself in the group chat and then decided not to, but I was so happy. I've never been more happy. And you know what's crazy is Caleb Williams, that last throw. And he had a lot of time to throw that ball. And he had time. And right before he threw it, my stepdad said, "There's the pick." And that's exactly what happened. It was crazy. I was like, oh my
And
God,
that's what
David.
you will remember.
Makes me happy, makes me smile. Listen, he'll be back next season. I think that whole division's going to be insane next year. The Lions are definitely going to come back with something to prove. Packers as well. And, I, I think JJ McCarthy might be a bust, but they're going to try to make it work.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
Yeah.
But would you be mad at me? You can't get mad at me here, okay?
I mean, I
Listen,
definitely can get mad at you if I want to. This is not a,
there was
what are you
a
talking about?
there's a part of me here that kind of wanted the Bears to win that game just to
Listen,
see your reaction. It would have
oh
been
no.
great content. It would have been
Yeah.
great content.
Oh my God. I would have just taken over trash cans the whole segment, but actually the whole show would have just been me hating the Bears. That actually probably just would have been the whole show. No, listen, it's a great story. And I can say that now because they've lost. But I promised myself that I will never root for Seattle. And I tell you right now, if the Bears had won that game, I would have bought a Seattle jersey and fucking, you know, been the 12th man here. Okay. I would have gone absolutely insane for the Seahawks defense to pancake the shit out of Caleb Williams.
So out on Seattle and on the Rams and Matthew Stafford next weekend.
Yeah, I just like him, but I'm at the point right now where I'm not really that like overly invested. I just want to see good football. But I'd like Stafford to get another ring. He'll retire. If he gets another ring, I bet he'll be done. So,
So
really want him to win. Yeah.
Rams out of the NFC,
Hmm.
and you don't want the Patriots to win, so you're going Denver out of the AFC, which means
Yeah.
you are predicting a Rams Broncos Super Bowl.
That's crazy. But I would be nervous if the Broncos end up winning this game. That would make me nervous because then I would be like, wait, what's that backup's name? I can't learn
Jarrett
it.
Stidham.
Stidham. I am so sorry to this man. Um, Stidham, I would be nervous about them if they won that game because then I would be like, oh shit, they're on like a roll and they've got momentum, real momentum on their side. I don't know. I think there'll be two interesting games. I'll be interested to see how well it goes.
We got to stop talking like that because Arliss might crash out on us for not giving Seattle a true chance here.
Here's the
I do think that their defense is scary. It's scary, and
I think this
I've
is
seen
yeah.
Matthew Stafford playing around too much
I
the last few weeks. I'm a little worried. It's looking a little
to
shaky.
Arliss, I would say it's your game to lose. I think the Rams would have to work really, really hard to win this game. I want them to win this game, but I do know that they might not because the defense in Seattle is that good.
Yes, it
So we'll
is.
have to see. We'll have to see. All right, that's going to wrap it for today. We'll see you next week.
Later.